So I'm just going to preface the review right at the beginning and tell you Yakuza 5 is definitely the epic of the Yakuza game series. It is sprawling, it is worldwide, it is phenomenal. It released in 2015 and I've been going through these games from Yakuza 0 all the way through the game series. This is my first playthrough through the entire thing. Every single game is either a brand new game for the PS4 or the remakes and remasters for PS4. I already completed Yakuza 0, Kiwami 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I just finished 5 last night to be exact. Yakuza 5 on the easiest difficulty took me 29 and a half hours for main story, and it was approximately, I believe the stats said 4.57% of the activities accomplished. 4.57 out of 100% of the activities for the entire game, and that was just main story. That should tell you exactly how much is in Yakuza 5. Yakuza 5, like I said, is the epic chapter of Sega's long-standing Yakuza series. Now, I'm going to begin. That was my preface, was the intro, and now I'm going to begin my review by saying Yakuza 5 is a very worthy succession into the game series. It is, like I said earlier, very sprawling. The storytelling is basically the same as Yakuza 4, although I will admit Yakuza 5 storytelling does feel more developed. The storytelling is basically 5 chapters. The first 4 chapters is they consist of 4 individual characters, one per chapter, and then the finale chapter, or part so to speak, is basically all of their stories finally culminating into an end and intertwining. I'm not going to tell you about the story because there are just way too many spoilers. I could tell you the main plot and it'd spoil practically everything. I could tell you the beginning or the end, or even that one thing that happens here or there, and it basically will spoil the entire thing. I will just say Yakuza 5 is an excellent story from beginning to end. It has good visuals for being a 2015 game, and with it being a remaster for PS4, and it was originally for PlayStation 3, it has good visuals. Now, with that being said, it has really good visuals for a Yakuza game, but for it being a 2015 game, the same year that released with the likes of The Witcher 3, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, I do believe it's not as on par with other games, but for a Yakuza game, it looks outstanding. The character models, the facial animations, they look enthralling and fully developed. It's the environments, the surroundings, still everything looks PlayStation 3 era. And it's fine because the story has it fully enveloped enough to not really mind. The combat is unfortunately one of the downsides to this game. The combat is just like all the other Yakuzas before it. It's a beat 'em up, and it's not very polished anymore. It's honestly redundant for a Yakuza game at this point, especially with Yakuza 5's diversity. It starts with the first chapter being a taxi driver, and one of the chapters you're a dancing pop idol singer. And I don't know, to me, like, the combat was definitely pushed back for the sake of the story this time, but the combat isn't really even that fluid anymore. It's repetitive. It's always repetitive. It's tedious. It's sometimes boring. The combos aren't really there anymore, in my personal opinion. The writing is still pretty good for the most part. I have a few issues pertaining to the writing and the story. So, like I said, I'm going through Yakuza's game series from 0 all the way to 6. and then continuing when 7 gets internationalized. With that being said, Yakuza 5 is the very first Yakuza game in the series to end on a cliffhanger. And honestly, I didn't like it. Every Yakuza game is like a season of Justified. Each game has a beginning, good guys, bad guys, you know who everybody is, and an ending to it. Everything wraps up right at the very end, and even in the epilogue and whatnot. Yakuza 5, it does that for the most part, but then the epilogue just kind of leaves you hanging until Yakuza 6. I don't like the cliffhanger. I usually don't like cliffhangers anyway, especially when the cliffhanger is in the post-credits scene, so that kind of pissed me off even more. The biggest downfall I would say for Yakuza 5, hands down, is the meshing of some side plots and sub-stories in the main story. Now, there are still secondary sub-stories that you can traverse through the world and accomplish and whatnot, do them individually. My problem is when you want to just do the main story, you're still caught up in a couple sub-stories throughout every single part. You'll talk to a main protagonist or antagonist, then you'll leave bar. You'll have to go and travel here and go and do this or talk to this person. But, God forbid, on the way, you stop and you notice this girl that lost her pom-poms from cheerleading and you have to go recover them. Stupid things like that. Most of them after the quick second or two of dialogue of constant X button mashing, you can skip it and just go and do what you want to do. But the problem is it ruins the flow. It ruins the pacing of the story. If you're in it for just the main story, it definitely ruins the pacing. Honestly, that's about it. The big positives, I would say the story for the most part, the character models, facial animations, a lot of the visuals are good, not all of them. The writing is decent at the very worst. The bad sides, the combat, it's stale at this point. The flow of the whole story and the narrative and the gameplay factor and the structure. Also, I wanted to point out, the storytelling was fine, but I feel like the creators are acting like we're children playing this game, and this game is rated M for a reason. We are mature adults. The storytelling of it, I feel like they definitely should have done what they did in Yakuza 0, taken references from Game of Thrones and have meshed the storylines together. Do one part Kazuma Kiryu for an hour or two, and then go on to the next character, and keep going like that. And I don't understand why they aren't treating us like full-fledged adults. Yakuza 4 storytelling was essentially the same, and it worked for the most part. It worked a lot better than Yakuza 5. I think the problem with Yakuza 5 storytelling is that the game was so damn long. Like I said, the main story alone took me 29 and a half hours. And honestly, some of the story was unnecessarily put in. A lot of the time, you go and you're tasked to go and do this, and like I said, you're stopped and talking to people, and I would say at least 25% of it had nothing to do with the main story, and that's unfortunate because the main story itself is excellent. It didn't need added into. Otherwise, Yakuza 5 is the epic of the Yakuza game series. I will give it that, and I will say this is a mostly excellent title. A mostly excellent continuation in the game series. So for me, Yakuza 5 is a 7 out of 10. Thank you.